What is up, listeners of the Didn't Ask podcast? Welcome back to episode 35 of the Didn't Ask podcast. How is everybody doing? Hope you had a good week. I certainly did. We had a fantastic UFC event the past weekend, and we had, of course, racing back. Man, the race weekend was absolutely very exciting for all race fans, I would say, really, because we had Max Verstappen, of course, gunning for that world title, his first world title, and with 5 races to go this past weekend, now we're only have 4 races to go. Every pole position, every win counts so much more than it used to do. So we had Max really doing very well in like the first couple of training races. He was setting best time laps and he was doing fantastically. Sadly, when it came to qualification, he was just a tiny bit slower because his tires weren't really working that well. Luckily, his race intelligence is so fucking huge that he started the race on Sunday, gunned straight ahead, and then came in first in the first turn that they had to take, and it was basically smooth sailing from that point on, doing very well. Sadly, Checo Perez couldn't get second place in his home country, but third is still a great way to place in your own country, especially that because it was, I believe, the first Mexican to get a podium position in Mexico itself. So that was pretty fucking cool. Then going back to the UFC, Kamaru Usman versus Colby Covington. There was a lot of bad blood between these two fighters. They had fought before. It was 2 years ago, I believe, if I say it from the top of my head. And man, again, it was a fucking war. But Kamaru did very well. He stayed composed. He tried to pick his shots and defended the takedowns. There was one takedown, but they didn't count it as a takedown because Kobe didn't have enough control, which means that Usman still has an 100% defense rate for takedowns, which is absolutely fucking crazy to think about. But man, that fight was fantastic. We had Justin Gaethje versus Michael Chandler to open the UFC event. And oh my fucking god, if you really want to see a war inside a UFC cage, go watch that. Because man, that fight was fantastic. And to open the evening with that fight, absolutely crazy. I surely cannot forget about Thug Rose Namajunas versus Zhang Weili. These two women absolutely went for it. But again, Rose was too strong and was too well composed for Weili to really do much. And everything Rose did was very clean, very textbook. She scrambled real quick and tried to get top position every time they went to the ground. And that brought her the victory, which meant that Trevor Whitman, who is the coach of Justin Gaethje, Kamaru Usman, and Thug Rose Namajunas, went 3-0 that night, which is absolutely insane to think, with especially the amount of talent that they were in the ring with. So congratulations to all the fighters that won. Congratulations to Trevor Whitman, who surely has to become the best coach this year for, again, bringing Rose her title back, for helping Usman regain his title, and then for training Justin Gaethje to be an absolute killer in that ring. But once again, I say this basically every week. This is not a UFC podcast. This is not a Formula One podcast. This is an Ask Reddit podcast, or basically an Ask Reddit podcast. So let's jump into the first question coming from Ask Reddit for today. And this one coming from user road_runner321. And they ask, What's a movie that you should never be remade? Movie remakes are a thing that comes up very often. We have had many movie remakes throughout the years, and some turn out better than others. We have had 3 Spider-Man incarnations at this point, probably a little more if you factor in older versions, and certainly more if you take the animation movies into consideration. But we still like those Spider-Man movies to a certain extent. And I was watching Ghostbusters, the 2016 remake, and it was absolutely horrible. I personally didn't like Ghostbusters 1 so that very much, but it was still way better than whatever the fuck the 2016 movie was. Going back to this question, what's a movie that should never be remade? And the answer to this question is very hard to give. Like, there are certain movies that you probably can't really remake. I'm thinking about basically everything that Christopher Nolan has done, because all those movies have a certain feel to them, and it's just Nolan himself infusing all those movies with such a special feeling. So I don't think that you can remake those movies. But again, I am not going to be the person that says you should never remake anything. Like, if you want to remake it, go ahead. Because from all of our standpoints, even though it might tarnish the brand overall, we will still have the originals to point to and to be like, hey, these are the good movies. Like, I don't think you can make Blade Runner again. Because again, Blade Runner is such an interesting view of how the future would look, and it's very much the cyberpunk style, which is something that's very similar as in the Star Wars universe, where there are certain things that are just very old, but then it's the future version of that, and it makes the thing so special, and it makes it so weird. Because if you think about a futuristic movie nowadays, you think about like people wearing VR glasses and screens that just swipe in the air and whatever, and holograms and stuff like that. And even though Blade Runner has some of those things, I still feel like Blade Runner still has a certain oomph, if you can call it that, that is just so different, because again, it's a interpretation of the future from the past. So we know that, oh, this is not necessarily how things look nowadays, but it was their view of how the future would look. So I feel like that is very interesting to think about. And therefore, I think that Blade Runner is a really hard movie to make again, because certain interpretations of the future and what the future is are just changing nowadays, that you cannot have that feeling again. And I know that they made a sequel to Blade Runner, but again, it was a sequel where things changed and the world changed. But I don't think you can go back to the first Blade Runner and do that again. But going back to the question asked by road_runner321, what's a movie that should never be remade? I don't think there is any movie that shouldn't be remade, because I still feel that if the original is as good as it seems, it should stand the test of time, and doesn't really necessarily matter if they remade the movie, yes or no. But again, there are certain movies that are so special to certain people, some movies that are special to me, that therefore it is really hard to see a remake of that. Think about Blade Runner, think about the Nolan movies. There are certain people that have such a interesting viewpoint on a certain thing that it is very interesting to think about that, how those movies will be remade. And again, I don't think you can. But thank you for your question, Roadrunner. Let's move on to the second question of today, and this one coming from user Sunshine Lollipoops. What YouTuber seems like they'd be a genuinely nice friend? YouTube has been such a staple in my life for over these past years, and you kind of grow a bond with these YouTubers even though they do not know you. And that's what I find very interesting with this question, because it's just like, okay, what YouTuber does seem nice to me? And I would say that basically all the sidemen seem to be very fun people to hang around, and they of course have their group chat called the Troops, which consists out of basically a whole bunch of London-based YouTubers, and they banter with each other. They throw funny memes back and forth. They make fun of each other in like loving ways, and therefore I think that they would be really fun to hang around with and be actually genuinely nice friends to you. There are certain things, of course, every friendship has that, where it's like, yeah, you have ups and downs and certain things you disagree with. But I feel like with them, especially because they're pretty close in age to me, I feel like that would be a fun group of guys to hang around with. And again, they're all doing a lot of things, making YouTube videos, owning multiple businesses for some, doing everything else. But still, I think that they would be very fun guys to hang around with. So going back to the question asked by Sunshine Lollipoops, what YouTuber seems like they genuinely be a nice friend? And my answer would be basically all of the sidemen. Because from all I have seen, they are just a couple of guys just wanting to have fun and enjoy their lives and enjoy their success that they have achieved so far. So thank you for your question, Sunshine Lollipoops. Moving on to the third question of the Ask Reddit subreddit. This one coming from user Mr. SWATPL, and they ask, if somebody kidnapped you and said, you die unless you sing one song perfectly, which one would you choose? Speaking of YouTubers, I would probably pick the song Destined for Greatness by Toby and Manny, and Toby of course being from the Sidemen, harkening back to the previous question. And that song is such a fun song, and it's a rap song, so it's basically full on rap, but I feel like I can sing that song perfectly fine. I hope that they give me a little leeway because I would be singing two parts. So I hopefully they give me like a 10%, fluctuation rate, because there are a lot of words in that song and they all come pretty quickly after one another, but I still think that it would be very doable for me. I'm looking through the comments of this question, and somebody said the Happy Birthday song. And then another user posted, Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to... Wait, who the fuck's birthday is it? Fuck! And it's such a fun reaction to the question, because yeah, Happy Birthday is one of those songs that you would probably go that, oh, I can do that very easily. But then yeah, if you don't know whose birthday it is, or you don't know the person that you're singing this lyric to, that would be a bit fucked. So going back to the question asked by Mr. SWAT PL, if someone kidnapped you and said, you die unless you sing one song perfectly, which one would you choose? And I would probably pick Destined for Greatness by Toby and Manny, just because I really like the song and I feel like I can do this song perfectly fine. I know all the lyrics. Again, there are two people for this song needed, realistically speaking, but I think I can do both parts if they give me a little leeway to breathe sometimes. But thank you for your question anyways, Mr. SWAT PL. Moving on to the fourth question of the Ask Reddit subreddit, and this one coming from user WhenCrowsFly_, and they ask, who do you find unattractive that most people find attractive? When I saw this question, I was thinking about this pretty hard, because I am attracted to a lot of people in all different forms and sizes. But then I was thinking about the movie Eternals that just came out, the newest Marvel movie that has a star-studded cast. People like Selma Hayek, Kumail Nanjiani, Kit Harington, you name it, they're in there. Fantastic. But who's also in there is Angelina Jolie. And people are fucking obsessed with Angelina Jolie, and I personally do not get it. I can see that she is like pretty, but for me it's not that I go like, oh my god, it's Angelina Jolie. I wanna do weird things with this woman. For some sort of reason, I have never really seen the appeal to Angelina Jolie. Like, I am looking at pictures right now, and on many of these photos, she looks absolutely like. I don't want to say that she looks bad, because she doesn't look bad, but it looks like she's been smoking cigarettes for a long time, and therefore her face kind of sunk in. So I don't really understand why people find her so attractive, because I personally cannot see it. And again, I'm not saying that she's an ugly woman and that she shouldn't exist and whatever the fuck, but like, to me, when I see Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie next to each other, my hetero ass would still pick Brad Pitt over Angelina Jolie. Basically, that's what it comes down to for me. Because yeah, I don't know. I just don't think she's that attractive. And I don't know why I don't find her attractive, but for some sort of reason, I just am not attracted to her face or something. I don't know. For some sort of reason, she just, in my opinion, looks kind of sometimes a little sickly, and it's always like weird to be like, oh. But again, yeah, to me, she kind of looks a little sickly sometimes, and yeah, that would be not my thing. So going back to the question asked by user, when crows fly underscore, who do you find unattractive that most people find attractive? And my answer would be Angelina Jolie. People love Angelina Jolie, but for some sort of reason, I just don't find her attractive. I don't know what it is, but she just doesn't do it for me. Thank you for your question. When crows fly underscore. Moving on to the final question of the Ask Reddit subreddit for today, and this one coming from user Crimson-Rat13, and they ask, if money was not an issue, what would you be doing with your life? I would just be living life. I think that for some sort of reason, I would probably still be doing things and creating stuff, because I'm doing this podcast right now and I don't earn anything from this podcast, sadly. That has partly to do with the platform that it is hosted on, but also just the fact that I don't have that many listeners listening currently. So please tell your friends to listen to this podcast, because that hopefully gives me a lot more energy and also a lot more resources to make this podcast better and better and better. Because right now, I'm just recording this in my room with a pretty okay mic and software that I bought years ago. But you can still hear things happening around me and outside, and there's still so many things that could be better. But life is good, but it could be better. But yeah, going back to the question asked by Crimson-Rat13, if money was not an issue, what would you be doing with your life? And again, I would just be living life. I would be, again, probably creating content, probably streaming on Twitch or something, and doing podcasts if I can. Because I just like doing that stuff. I like being busy. But I would also just enjoy it in the sense that, hey, if I want to go to Disneyland, I can just go to Disneyland. I just hop on a train and be in Paris very quickly and then go to Disneyland. If I want to go back to London to watch wrestling or something like that, I'm going to go to London and watch wrestling. So I would just experience things. I would start traveling. I would, again, probably make myself a content creator just by proxy, because if I'm going to be traveling, I'm going to make pictures, I'm going to be posting those pictures, and therefore it basically is a closed feedback loop where I travel, I get pictures, I make more money, and then I can travel more and therefore make more pictures and then make more money and therefore go travel more and more. So yeah, I would just be living life to the fullest and not be worrying about if I can pay my health insurance or if I can pay my subscriptions to Netflix and Disney Plus and you name it, because I would just be living life to the fullest. Thank you for your question, Crimson Rat 13. And now, it's time for the moment you have all been waiting for, the main event of the evening. We're diving into the question from the Am I the Asshole subreddit, and this one coming from user abandonship45. Am I the asshole for abandoning my son and refusing to collect him after my ex told me to? I have a 4-year-old son with my ex-husband. We've been in the middle of a divorce since our son was 1. My ex has made settling the divorce and deciding custody of our son hell for me, both financially and emotionally. I finally reached my boiling point 2 months ago when I realized just how bad my finances are at the moment and the fact that I would need to stop the divorce and move to an even cheaper but dangerous area to just survive at this point. I don't want my son to have to live there too. So I decided that the next time my ex was in the country, I would take my son and leave him with his dad since he wants custody so badly. My ex assumed it was just for the day, but when I didn't come to pick him up in the evening and I wasn't home when he tried to drop him off, he started texting and calling me non-stop, telling me I needed to collect our son since he didn't have his nanny there and he was very busy. I ignored him for over a week until he started threatening to have someone come and find me. We had a conversation where my ex was asking me what type of mother just ups and abandons her child like I had done. He wanted to know where I was and wanted to know when I was going to come back. When I told him I wasn't, he told me he had learned his lesson and I need to stop punishing our son to make a point. I told him I wouldn't come back because my ex was right. He had the money to give our son a better life, so he had one. He asked me what he was supposed to tell our son, and I told him he should tell him the truth. That his dad liked to bully people with his money, and it made me have to go away. He got really angry and told me to not play games and that we should go back to our old financial agreement that we had before I filed for divorce, if I would just come back. Am I the asshole? Simple answer to your question, Abandonship 45. Yes, you are the asshole. The fact that you are in this very long divorce sucks. It sucks really badly. But it's all about the way you handle things. And if the dad wants custody and you are not able to provide the things he needs, then yes, you may be looking at a point where the kid lives with his dad throughout the week and then comes to you in the weekends or something like that. But that is something you have to come to an agreement to. You cannot just say to the kid like, hey, goodbye, mommy, we'll see you soon, and then drop the kid off at his father without the father's knowledge that it would be longer than a day, and then just disappear and then not answer calls and whatever the fuck. Again, I understand that you're in a really hard situation where you have been with this man for a couple of years, you had a baby, and now you've been basically in a divorce for 3+ years. But again, as an adult and as a parent, you want to make the divorce as seamless as possible for the children involved. And you had the luck that the kid was relatively young when you guys split up and filed for divorce. Sadly, because the fact is, it takes very long for you guys to get the divorce through, the kid is starting to realize more and more what the fuck is going on. And it sounds bad for me to say this, but even though you may not meant it this way, you are gonna be seen as the asshole, not only by this Reddit, but also by the child, because the kid now knows that you basically abandoned him. You left him at his dad, and you just disappeared, not to be heard of ever again. So I feel like, yeah, you should be going back to the dad, pick the kid up, talk about the divorce and what the financial agreement is. But you can also not put everything on the dad in this situation. That, again, we don't know the full situation of the facts, but you cannot just leave a kid at their father's and just never return. And maybe you need to take matters in your own hands, that if you cannot afford certain things, and again, I'm not saying that you're lazy or something like that, but out of the text that is laid before me, it kind of seems that you are not working yourself or something like that, and that you're just basically living on the money that your ex-husband gives you. That kind of is how it feels for me. So I feel like sometimes you need to, step up and provide for the child. And if you can't provide fully, then there are certain, people that can help. There are certain organizations that can help you with that. So going back to your question, am I the asshole for abandoning my son and refusing to collect my son after my ex told me? Yes, you're the asshole. And I don't know really whatever you want to do with this, but you are the asshole, and you need to take a look in the mirror and see how you can go out of this situation. But just leaving your kid at your ex-husband is just really bad. So yeah, you are the asshole. And this has been it for the Didn't Ask podcast for this week. I hope you had a good time. If you did, please leave a rating on Apple Podcast. If you do, I might see it and read your review out on the show. I will be back next week. In the meantime, you can watch whatever I'm watching through tracked.tv. That link will be in the show description. Another link that you can find in the show description is the link to anchor.fm/didn't-ask-pod. Over here, you can find all of the older episodes, but you can also find a button where you can ask a personal question to me. And that question will be a voice recording, so I can splice that into the episode, and then you can hear your voice on the podcast and I can answer your question succinctly. If you don't want your voice to be heard on the podcast, I can totally understand that. Just say it up front in the message and I'll read the question out loud for myself. Well, that's all for me for this week. I hope to see you back next time. Have a good week and goodbye.